Buddhist claims as the reality of rebirth and the possibility of attaining enlightenment. A significant number of recent Buddhist teachers, especially in the Theravada and Zen traditions, do not concern themselves much with such metaphysical questions, preferring a more pragmatic, worldly way of thinking about the Dharma. Tibetan teachers, on the other hand, while certainly practical, tend in general to take traditional metaphysics quite seriously, and so it is their teachings and writings that have echoed in my mind over the years, and, for better or worse, kept the question of rebirth alive for me over the course of almost 5 decades. This small book will not resolve my or anyone's questions about the possibility of rebirth, nor is it intended to do so. It is simply a probably foolhardy attempt to broadly survey 2,000+ years of Buddhist discourse on the subject. I place the greatest emphasis on Indian Buddhism, because most of the ideas and practices adopted or adapted by Buddhists elsewhere in Asia can be traced to the texts and traditions that developed in the subcontinent between roughly 400 BCE and 1200 CE. But I will also address trends in the parts of Buddhist Asia that lie outside India, and consider briefly the place of rebirth in modern Buddhist thought, especially in the West. For the most part, I seek simply to describe the Buddhist ideas and practices, and to make them as understandable as I can. Now and again, though, a normative comment seems necessary, and near the very end, for what it is worth, I will say something of my own approach to the problem of rebirth, if, indeed, it is a problem. I will begin in Chapter 1 by discussing the place of rebirth in a number of world cultures, ranging from African to Polynesian and Amerindian, as well as in Greek to other Western traditions. Chapter 2 provides some background on the early South Asian ideas of rebirth that likely were current at the time of the Buddha. Chapter 3 discusses what, if anything, we can discern of the Buddha's own attitude toward rebirth, and considers some objections to the common view that he believed in past and future lives. Chapter 4 outlines the details of the early Buddhist concept of rebirth in terms of where one might be born, the 5 or 6 realms of samsara. Chapter 5 explores the causal processes, both mental and physical, through which we actually take rebirth in one of the realms described in Chapter 4. Chapter 6 analyzes both the basics and nuances of karma, the positive, negative, or mixed actions that explain why we take rebirth in this or that situation. Chapter 7 offers a brief aside on popular images, texts, and practices, including visual depictions of the Wheel of Life, story literature, and some points of tension between Indian Buddhist theory and Indian Buddhist practice. Chapter 8 is concerned with Indian Mahayana Buddhist approaches to rebirth, including those of the Pure Land Sutras and Madhyamaka and Yogacara philosophers. Chapter 9 examines the views and practices of the Indian Tantric branch of Mahayana, known as the Adamantine vehicle, Vajrayana, or way of mantra, Mantranaya. Chapter 10 considers pre-modern, especially Indian, Buddhist attempts to defend or prove the idea of rebirth, touching on empirical, ethical, analogical, and rational arguments, and also puzzling out the knotty problem of how Buddhists can assert rebirth while denying that there is a self to be reborn. Chapter 11 surveys the spread of Buddhism outside India and examines pre-modern Buddhist attitudes toward rebirth in the Theravada world of South and Southeast Asia, taking Sri Lanka as an exemplary case. Chapter 12 examines pre-modern Buddhist takes on rebirth in the predominantly Mahayana world of East Asia, taking China as an exemplary case. Chapter 13 examines pre-modern Buddhist perspectives on rebirth in the predominantly Vajrayana world of Inner Asia, taking Tibet as an exemplary case. Chapter 14 addresses the status of rebirth in modern, roughly post-1800, thought in general, and modern Western Buddhism in particular, delving into the various ways in which the idea has been received and interpreted in both Asian and Western cultural settings. The 15th and final chapter summarizes some recent debates about rebirth and seeks to chart a way forward in thinking about the idea in the 21st century. To steal a rhetorical trope from Gregory Chopin's wonderfully wry prefaces to his essay collections, the major blame or credit for the existence of this